Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Global Conversations. I'm Andre Darmanin from Urban Equity Consulting Services. And today we're talking about racism to inclusion. How do we get there? With over 26 years of experience speaking for Fortune 500 companies such as HP, Starbucks, Microsoft, and Goldman Sachs, my guest, Jolene Jang, has developed highly engaging programs promoting stronger teams. Jolene has attracted the attention of all the local stations and national news such as Oprah, Today Show, Good Morning America, and 50 other news outlets. Wow, that's a lot. And so, I was introduced to Jolene by a EDI classmate of mine, EDI in the workplace classmate of mine, KG Cujo, who both of them worked at the Girl Scouts. And they said this about Jolene. So, Jolene, tell us more about your.
Let me jump in and just brag
just
about
go
KG.
ahead. Just go ahead. Just go.
Let
go.
me share about
coaching.
KG. So KG saw me present at one of my anti-Asian, Stop Asian Hate presentations. I've done hundreds of them. And so she joined my group, my Asian Allies group. And so this is a Facebook group where people are committed to listen and actively support people of Asian and Pacific Islander descent. And so we had this one-on-one conversation when they was working at the, KG was working at the Girl Scouts. And I said, hey, what about a Girl Scout badge or patch, about Stop Asian Hate or Asian Americans? And KG said, yeah. And so it is done. So KG put it together, and how the Girl Scouts works is they have these different merit badges and patches. They even have mechanics and STEM programs. But I said, hey, how about this Asian American? And so KG put it together. So now Girl Scouts have this multicultural badge, and Asian American is a piece of it, is that patch. And so there are all these activities from kindergarten through high school of activities where they can earn and learn about Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And Girl Scouts is US based, but it's a global group, and they have another partner. And so there's 10 million, Andre, 10 million Girl Scouts across, isn't that across 146 countries, and 50 million have gone through the program. So that is a win. So that's allyship right there. Thank you, KG.
Yeah, no, that was a great story that you mentioned with KG. I mean, first of all, thinking about KG in my class, she was very vocal, very energetic, and I remember her being that way. And it seems like the relationship that you two had, it resonated with you, and you've worked together, and it's the power of allyship here. Right.
Yes.
But also something else that you had mentioned, which is kind of the conversations I've had in the past, is about multiculturalism, something that we talk about here more in Canada than you do in the US when it comes to the melting pot of nationalities. And we've had conversations about this previously about, Asian American people in the US versus Asian and South Asian community in Canada in terms of the neighborhood, the structure, the community itself, first generation, multiple generations, et cetera, in both countries. So there's so much involved here, and I'm grateful to have this conversation. Jolene, you want to add something to that?
I was just going to say, as we talk about racism and inclusion, it's, problem solving is the process I'm using is pretty simple. I mean, the idea of raising awareness. If you don't know there is a problem, which Americans do not know, then you have to raise awareness. And number two, deepen understanding. Try and share stories so people can connect with it. And number three, agree that, oh, that's a problem that we should change. Yes. And number four, move to action. So that's the simple process that I use. And it should be simple, but it's not. And let me give you an example. So you may have heard recently that Japan is proposing a bill against upskirting. I don't know if you've heard about that. So that's recent.
Yes.
And I am I'm aware of this because this happened to me. So, so upskirting is a hobby. It's a hobby, a sport, and a job where usually men take videos and pictures underneath clothing. They also call it down blousing. So this is kind of a thing that's been along the way for a long time, even before the internet. And so this happened to me. I was upskirted in 2001 in Seattle. in Seattle, Washington, shadow of the Space Needle. And so after I chased the guy, unfortunately, guess what? It was legal. Andre, this dude could just video up my skirt and toddlers and then sell it. So what I did is, so I heard that that was okay to do. I'm like, no. So I raised awareness and got people to understand. So I shared my story, number one. And so I was on all the media, local and news across the nation and some international as well. And then the idea of getting some buy-in, they can't maybe relate to me because I'm Asian. So, however, and I'm female. So, hey, do you have a sister? Do you have a mom? Do you have a daughter? This could be happening. How would that impact them? And so, of course, this is wrong. And then step number 4, move to action. So I always had this, hey, write into your email, into your legislators. And so at the time, this is 2002, when this passed, when the Washington state law passed, this was the fastest piece of bill legislation that have gone through in Washington state ever. And it was because we went through this simple process. It was not fun, but I think it was like 6 or 8 months. And so that's kind of done. And now there are 42 states have followed through. So it's all 50 states and federal law that understand upskirting and that it is bad. But I would say that worked out. That was ideal how quickly that went through, because people could understand, oh, women. Oh, okay. I know a woman. But when I'm trying to talk about Asian inclusion, people are like, I don't understand. I don't care. So it's not going through this 4-step process as easy as it should.
Yeah, no, and it's, first of all, thanks for enlightening me about the upskirting, laws that are taking place in Japan, and this is something that we need to be aware of, especially in North America, because in Canada, I've never heard any municipality or the country as a whole, or even the province, mentioning this. I mean, we talk about various aspects of gender equity, but but if it's not shown, if it's not displayed in the laws, then it's then it's going to continue to happen, unfortunately. Right?
Yep.
So no, but thanks for making the audience aware of this. And so, as you're talking about Asian inclusivity and the work that you do, so let's go more into detail about, what does an Asian inclusivity speaker talk about? What are you all about, basically?
So let me start with the problem, because in order to raise awareness for Asian inclusion, well, what's the problem? Asians, they don't experience discrimination, do they? They have good jobs. Yeah, the people at my work, they all have good jobs. So therefore, and I never hear any complaints from them, so they're all good. So that's the common idea of like Asians don't have problems. And we do. We're being hated on. And if you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, IND, DNI, all the things. And if you were to Google up diversity panel, like what you'd pull up, you'd pull up faces, and there'll be Black faces and some white faces and some gay faces, but you would not ever see Asian faces. And that is very standard. At least in America, that's what I see. And I am glad to see Black and LGBT faces there. But Asians also need to be included. And all the topics also, they do not include. It's like your own, check your bias, and let's look at Black folks and LGBT folks. But it's not accessibility, it's not Asians, it's not Indigenous. So we need to be included too. And even just looking in America, so we have Black History Month. Most companies know, okay, George Floyd, okay, we better be at least performative and celebrate Black History Month. In Pride Month, I think Pride is very popular to display rainbows and everything. So at least they're performative on that. For Asian Americans, so May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so people are not even really performative on that. So in terms of people are not even performative yet. I would take performative. because you have to be performative first before
Yeah.
we go further. So, yeah, I mean, I think about Asian Americans, how it's the forgotten group, it's overlooked. And, many of us don't feel safe. Like once we walk outside, and some of us have to simulate so hard, can't be our authentic selves. And if you as an employer want to recruit and retain Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, or anybody in your respective countries, if you have a white country, you're trying to recruit anybody of Asian or Pacific Islander descent, well, you need to be more culturally competent. And, looking at just recently, I keep up on news, not up to the minute, but probably up to the hour. And so, with the
Come on.
world population, 60% Asian, and that's just Asians in Asia. So that's not the rest of us who are spread out
Right.
around the world. But with India, just moving forward with 1.4 billion, more than, that's now you have China and India both at these high numbers. You might want to start paying attention to Asians, and in America. So in 2045, it's going to be more than 50% people of color. And I'm in Seattle, where it's very tech oriented, and across the pond where Microsoft is, it's 50% people of color already. And in Redmond, it's 38% Asian. So wow, you'd think that companies would see the benefit. Okay, so this is a population is growing at the fastest rate, has the highest levels of income, highest levels of education, the fastest growing buying power. And so in America, in the last 20 years, the buying power has shot up, with Asian Americans 314%. So there are these business reasons, Andre, where companies should, we'd like them to do the right thing. But hey, there's financial reasons too.
Yeah. And that's the whole, as much as I hate to say, there's that, the business case for diversity, because it goes beyond just a business case. It becomes reality. And, on past conversations that I've had where I talk about, number one, to your point about the global population and the population within the US, and maybe, I don't know how many years after that, Canada will have the same issue where it's like the majority of people. That's why I've started to have that conversation about, we should talk about the global majority, because that's who's coming up, and that's who we've left out, instead of talking down to us as visible minorities or the minority population, right? And that's something that we'll get the defensiveness from the white people because of that, because they don't want to be, because they feel that they're going to be, downgraded and hated against and whatnot. But this is not it. This is about, first of all, it's about the reality of what the world is at this moment and what it will be in the very near future. 2045 is, fine. It's another 20 something years, but at the same time, it's not that far away. That's a generation.
I mean, it's when I go over to Bellevue, which is not, that's the rich side of town. I'm not over that. I hardly leave my house actually, but I just look around. I'm like, oh, where am I? Wow. It feels so safe here. And it's just, it's a different feeling. So the idea, friend up with non-white people. You might want to do that and learn how to do that. And that's, as an Asian inclusivity speaker, that's what I do. I train mostly, the dominant culture, white folks, to learn about Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. Who are they? Where do they live? What are their values? What's important to them? How can we include them? And by the way, finding out, like you can learn a lot from Pacific Islanders. Wow, they're living on this remote island and they've learned how to do things and be more resourceful and how to build communities. Well, if you want to build community in your organization, hey, maybe look at communities who've already done that. And so I share with employees like how to create this, and that, talking about race and ethnicity doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to hurt. It doesn't have to be wildly uncomfortable. So I try and make it, gamify it. My line of work is working with usually white folks in technology and C-suites. And so gamifying it is a good idea. And it's also easier. I bring in like pop culture maybe name that tune and things that they can relate to. So we're relating to that nostalgia of, oh, that TV show, Happy Days, but I bring an Asian lens to it. So they're like, oh, they're leaning in and like, oh. So it's bringing kind of a fun aspect into it to talk about something that's delicate and sensitive and to make it a little bit easier to digest.
Yeah. So, that's something that I've learned about you. One of the things in the podcast and doing research about you, you've talked about, gamifying, and that's part of that whole specialization that you have as being a fun specialist and a corporate team builder. So, as we're talking about the power of storytelling, as we're talking about, your direction and whatnot. So what motivated this change in direction to speak about Asian inclusion? So is there anything else you want to add to your story and why the direction?
Yeah. So I have a strong sense of fight. So my dad, he's Chinese and Swedish, and he was more or less a foster kid and lived on the streets. He lived in Stockton, and then they didn't actually they had a dirt floor and bath, like the toilet was out on the dirt floor or something. Like, what? Because I grew up very privileged. And so he was picked on, and then he also ran around with Mexican kids, and some of them were picked on, and he was always fighting, defending other people. And so I've had that sense of fight that a lot of Asians didn't grow up with. So I had to do it. So it kind of stems to my childhood, and I grew up in many white spaces. In this picture, you'll see I'm the non-white person there in the pink. So these were my best friends, my posse, and which is a funny name to call it, as we are all white, and it's just a weird thing. But anyways, so I grew up in white spaces, and the difference with my experiences, I was not teased. And when you have an Asian American, or actually Asian anywhere, who grew up in white spaces, they're going to be teased. They're for their name, for their food, for their eyes, everything about them. And that was not my experience. And so I'm very lucky for that. And so I am Japanese. I'm ethnically Japanese, Chinese, and Swedish, and I'm culturally Japanese American because I have my Japanese American around me and living. And I'm fourth generation. So I think your past two guests, I think they were first and second generation. So
Right.
as you think about like my voice, fourth generation, so I'm not assimilating. I am. So I have to dig around for my Asian American culture. So I have to dig for it because I'm so Americanized. So with that, so I continue to be in the white community, and as a professional speaker and fund specialist and team builder, working with a lot of tech companies, I'm in all these white spaces as a speaker. And so I'm very used to this environment. So that changed, Andre. So big change. So with COVID, now people who look like me are blamed for this global pandemic. So with all the blaming, and also all the events that I used to do went away because they're no longer physical events. So you asked, well, how did I get into doing this thing that's maybe not so fun? I just feel like I'm called, like I had to do it. I have to. So with Atlanta, with the murders in America of the 8 people, and 6 of them Asians, the news is actually picking this up. The big news is picking this up, which is actually kind of unusual. And I knew that I had to speak up on this because I'm a professional speaker, and I have the ability, and each day I don't, another Asian is going to be attacked. So now, being that my network is 98% white and I'm quarter white, I did question my Asianness. And I absolutely
Mm-hmm.
did not, right? I mean, I didn't know what other Asians are thinking because wasn't really in conversation with them. So I plugged into all these Asian American networks. So that's Asian American News, Next Shark, NBC America, and to learning. And also these Facebook groups with people of Asian descent in North America, and to hear what they're saying. Well, guess what? Asians are attacked every single day.
Mhm.
Yeah, Andre, I had no idea. Because with COVID, I was taking in minimum of 5 hours a day, minimum of news. And I did not hear that from the mainstream news. And so now that I know this, okay, well, we need the majority of people. That's my friends. I will just tell them and they will help out. That's what I'll do. And so I began sharing maybe 6 posts a day, and a post, like, here's a post that I have. How many Asians need to die? Let's not beat around the bush here. Can you take a moment to listen and learn, and show you care? So then with that, I would share a short article or video and share this. I know you don't know. So let's rise up here. I saw you on Black Lives, with Black Lives Matter and Pride. Let's do this. I had all faith. And Andre, my network is the National Speakers Association. So this is across the world, and event planners and techies and liberals. So they are already out there. So adding another cause is like, oh, they just don't know. So yeah, that did not work. I actually thought that, oh, is my Facebook broken? Is my LinkedIn broken? Did I post to myself? So no, it wasn't. And so I continued for a while, and then still no engagement. So it's silence. You post something, nothing, and just continue like that. And so I thought, well, Andre, maybe they just need to see proof of it, because I know the news doesn't show it. So what I started doing on my website, jolenejang.com, and there's a link that has the attacks and a little trigger warning. So I thought, all right, well, I will go ahead and share. Oh, actually, let me reverse that. By the way, I began sharing stories before I did the attacks. I was sharing stories of sometimes 5 lives a day, with other Asian Americans, because how often do you get to hear Asian Americans talking with each other, not code switching? So that was what I doing, which was not effective either. So that's when I went to the attacks. And so here are attacks, and it's daily. And I showed, acid being thrown in the face. This woman is set on fire. This man was stabbed. This other person was murdered. And I thought, okay, well, now people have proof that they can actually see it for themselves, so they don't have to trust me. So nothing, Andre, like, where's my network? I have a worldwide network. And back then it was like 7,000 people. I reported at CES and South by Southwest. These are big, huge technology events, and just no engagement. And where are my best friends? Yeah. The one that I stood by who got divorced, the one who got cancer, and the other one who was raped. I was there for them. Where are they? They're not there for me. And they still are not there for me. And my past best friend, she's in my will. And she said, like, you seem angry. I think you should see a therapist, and turn off the TV and just, try and be happy.
Don't get me started on that stuff. Okay. Anyway. Oh God. Anyway.
Yeah. So you can, and she's such a do-gooder. She's such a do-gooder, right? And she's so kind, and all of this. And I spoke to her every day for, like, for our friendship. We were friends for like 10 years or 12 years or something. But she can't see color. She just can't do it. And I cried nearly every day, seeing Asians being attacked, a brick to the head. And it's not a hate crime, and a hammer to the head. What else can you throw at an Asian head? And so that was painful to see. And I think it's important to see, and I continue to see it. And then also, but it's that white silence, the white silence of my friends and my networks of seeing this and ignoring it. And just that silence is just violent to me. And I lost most of my friends to silence and white fragility. And, I chose justice over friendship, and it's worth it. It was tough to do, but it's worth it, because in the long run, I want to know who's around me. I don't want any fake friendships out there. And so the good part is I built 2 groups, and this is so a Facebook group called Empowered Asians. So this is where I can gather those stories. So, earlier I talked about we need to raise awareness. and then try and deepen people's understanding with stories. And so all these stories, these are Asians who have nobody to talk to. They're reaching out to Asian strangers like I needed to be able to be heard and validated and seen. And now with these stories, what do we do with them? We need people to listen to them. So that's where the Asian allies, that's where KG, people like KG are committed to listen to our stories and to do something. So, there's a silver lining, I guess. And now I have 450 people in the group, and I've done hundreds of presentations and interviews with lots of Asians and all these webinars. And I'm focusing on mostly the event community, event and hospitality, because these are the people who reach around the world and can share. So that's my story of going from the fun specialist to talking about death and murder and race, right? I mean, that's kind of a leap, but important. And I think that I'm the right person to do it, because the things I laugh about are not normally what I would laugh about, but in order to survive, I kind of have to laugh at them. So, so that's my story.
Oh man, like so many things are going through my head as I was listening to this powerful story, and the story that you told about, moving from your fun specialist side to this. And I mean, a couple of things come to mind. Number one is Asian hate is not just what happened before, during Corona. I mean, and I can talk about my story where in Toronto, it still was felt the same way. We get the news from the US about how Trump, with his China virus or whatever the heck it was, that anyway. And it resonated to our Chinatown, where it ended up being that it was dead. One of the things, even before the messaging from the Chinatown Business Improvement Association came out, I was like, I'm going in. Like, it's not, and that's the problem, is that we have a problem of generalizing, right? And this even goes back to 9/11, perfect example of Asian hate, right? It was, not only Asian hate, but also, religious hate, right? About the Muslim community, right? Whether it was through TSA or through the religious communities, et cetera, right? We saw this even before, but yet, it was like, it was kind of silenced, right, by that white silence. And now we're doing it again with the Asian community and coronavirus. So it's event and media driven. And you're making, and this is where the relationship comes in, where you're saying that, as a fun specialist, right, you've seen it because it's it's media driven. And you're just making that into how are we, and you're using the power of media through your Facebook group, through these types of venues of a podcast. And this is exactly what we're trying to talk about, right? And I'm grateful that you have raised us, provided examples, and made people aware that this is the stuff that needs to happen. This is the work that needs to be done. And I see it, in terms of, even working groups that we're part of, or ERGs that we're part of, right? And you've basically hit the nail on the head. Why aren't Asian communities more involved in this? And it's not the story of they don't want to get involved. They're the quote unquote quiet ones because of the model minority. And I hate using that term, but that's the assumption that other people use, right? And so these are the kinds of things that we need to be aware of, and we need to hear more from you. And I'm so grateful that that you agreed to be a guest on my webcast, because you're making awareness of this, not only in the North American context, but also in a global context, especially that, Asian Heritage Month is actually going to be in the UK later this year. So that's even something for us to even see. That's something that we, like, I didn't know about this. So that's, this is something that I'm grateful for you to tell your story about and provide those examples.
Well, I'll tell you, my goal here is pretty simple. It really is to be able for people of Asian Pacific Islander descent to be able to walk in public and be safe. I no longer walk in my nice little neighborhood or anywhere by myself. And I have reason for that. And, my dad got a death threat. My mom or my aunt was followed for 10 minutes. I had a couple situations when I was walking because, I used to do 5 miles a day, excuse me, for like 10 years, and up to midnight and 5 a.m. in the morning, in my nice little white neighborhood. But there's been so many incidents that say, no, that is not the best idea. So there's a lot of changes, but really it's simple. Being able to walk in public, to feel safe and to be safe at also at the workplace and respected. Now, in the workplace, I wouldn't say that there's stabbings at the workplace, but there's the invisible cuts with, 1,000 cuts, right? With the microaggressions, and people are not aware of that. So I do a lot of training on what are these microaggressions towards Asians, because they never say anything. They don't have any problems. So there's a lot of work to do. And go ahead. Were you going to say something? Sorry.
No. I was letting you finish because it's, go ahead.
And something you mentioned, like Asians speaking up, there are a number of us speaking up, but there's plenty of them who are not. And there's lots of reasons why that happens. But I'll tell you, as an Asian advocate, it is so hard. So Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders. So who is that? That's 48 countries, 3 territories. And I'm using the definition from the UN because there's a lot of definitions. And there's, over 25,000 islands represented. And so you have all these religions, and you have mixed people like myself, Japanese, Chinese, Swedish. You have different generations, 4th generation. So I don't relate to a 1st generation, sometimes not a 2nd generation, because I'm very Americanized. As I mentioned earlier, I have to study for my culture. I have Asian American culture, but for the Asian part, I got to study that. I got to look into the family tree. I have to try and get my parents to talk about their upbringing, which is difficult. So what, Andre, when I spoke to you a little bit before we started, I said, oh man, I just got this email and it's so maddening. And it's another Asian. So it is really, there's so much self-hatred. And I didn't know the word self-hatred. It's not self, like in the context that I'm using, it's not hatred for yourself. It's hatred for the skin that you're in. Mm-hmm. And so this person who is part of the Asian category has a lot of self-hatred. And so she's not even the one speaking up. I will do all the heavy lifting. You can go hide in the corner and pretend you're not associated and pretend you're white, but don't try and negate me. And it's real. Yeah. So I think I'm going to do I'll do a podcast on that, the whole self-hatred piece and how that comes out. So it is very difficult. So I focus on white people because in America, 6% white, and these are the folks who really, can make a difference. Trying to unite the 6% Asian is difficult, and I will continue to empower. But I really focus on the white folks because that's where the bulk is. So it's difficult. So the simulation is real.
Yeah. And, it reminds me, as you were talking about the self-hatred and whatnot, and, and the other person being Asian themselves, there's, even a friend of mine just recently told me a story where, she's on an anti-racism committee or working group. I don't know specifically, but they're trying to achieve this within an agency. And so she's South Asian. The person that's giving her backlash is actually East Asian. So, she's protecting the status quo. So there's that, not only that self-help, but there's also this cultural safety, if you will, right? So then it becomes, how do we become inclusive of each other without discriminating against each other? But then there's also the factor of, assimilation. So, there's 2 sides to it. Not really 2 sides to this, but there's 2 stories with this. And
there's multiple. And because like the person I'm talking about is South Asian.
Yeah.
And
See, that's
right,
totally different
right,
from what.
right. And then, but also when I was moderating these other thing, I'm like, okay, the Chinese American, different generation. He's an older boomer, and it's like you didn't, as an older boomer, and being Chinese, you're hated against. You're absolutely hated growing up, and so your head's down. You're being as white as possible, and you're hated on. You just move through it, and you're male. You just gotta go through it. But what I'm saying is, hey, these two young ladies who were on the panel, they shouldn't have to deal with this.
Right.
Right? Do we want them? Also, they have different issues than you do as a 70-year-old male. Like, it's different. And so it's really, with my mom, with my parents generation, they don't share. That's not the thing. You just heads down. This World War II, it's like, internment camp, there's a term, shaka ganai, and it's a Japanese term. It's just like, it's kind of what it is. I can't remember what it says, but it's like, it's just in the past, like the war, we don't talk about it. It's over. We're just moving forward. And so it's really generational too. And so it's very complicated. So when we are all bucketed, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, all into one bucket, different generations, different identities, socioeconomic classes, crazy rich Asians to the super poor, it's like, it doesn't make sense. And when we're not on these panels, when we're not including diversity, what is going on? Hello. So.
Yeah. And that's, it goes back to our original point of, being included on, not only committees, but also panel discussions, right? And it goes beyond just the 1 month of, as I mentioned to my fellow Black community is, Black History Month is more than 365 days a year. So is every other culture, right? It's beyond 360. It's beyond 1 month a year or 1 day a year. It's 365 days a year, and they should be, each group should be included in the conversations, in how we drive policies and procedures and programs and all of that, right? And that's something that we like to talk about. And as we're moving on to this, one of the books that I read recently, I'll probably botch the name. I believe it's like Culture Between Us or something like that. But anyway, the author is Batia Mesquita, and you talked about it briefly about the heads down based on the trauma that occurred during World War II. And so it's an understanding of cultural differences, not only within the specific countries of Japan, China, Thailand, India, but also, intercultural differences as well. So, I mean, I guess the question is, is this an example, or are there other examples that you can find where there's discrimination against Asians in the global community?
Well, I mean, COVID, I think is the best example that I think everybody can relate to. If you're in a white community around the world, Asians are hated and are blamed. I was interviewing a Korean American who left America because she wanted to leave all the discrimination that she experienced. And she moved to Peru, and it was great for a while. And then COVID hit, and then she's followed, and then she's spit on, then she's yelled at. And with COVID, if you're in a white country and you're Asian, I don't know if you see it, I see it. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. And America is very popular. And with, with the past leader being so dominant and always in the news, people are excited about a powerful man who just does what he wants. So that hate is everywhere.
Yeah. So, beyond, one of the things I talk about is, whether it's, people like yourself or others, the power, is EDI a global issue? Is it just an American issue? I know there was a Harvard Business Review article that mentioned that, and it was forwarded to me by a South Asian person. So, and that raises a point of, we talk about it from only the American perspective, but really this is a global issue, right?
Yeah, well, I can only speak from American side, and that's
Right.
um, but I hear from other Asians around the world, and it's just very, it's very sad. So I'm not familiar with, like, let's say, the panels in Sweden and what happens over there.
Mhm.
But I do have some ideas for your EDI, DEI, IND, your diversity professionals, who work with North Americans, and just to, when you have your Asian and Pacific Islander colleagues at your meeting, listen to them. Maybe prompt them, amplify them, validate them, or, oh, um, uh, Tan said this. I fully agree. That is a great idea. I think we should do that, because a lot of times when an Asian does speak up, they're trampled over, or somebody runs up with the idea, or just it's gone. So that amplify, validate, prompting sometimes. So that's helpful. And refer. So representation is really important. Um, in my programs, I talk about yellow face, because black face is bad. We don't do
Mhm.
that. We get in trouble for that yellow face, but yellow face still is a thing when white people dress up, and pretend they're Asian in movies. So we need representation in the workplace. So refer people to different positions, sponsor, give some advice, or just sit down and validate. KG, who was at Girl Scouts, she referred me, and then she did the work and
Mhm.
validated me. You can do this with your coworkers. And for our podcast today, share this out. Tag Andre and I. Um, look at marketing. Look at your marketing. Looking at your training manuals. Do you have Asian faces there? Do you have different body types? What are the names you're using in your training? Maybe you could use Rosario and Ming and Ji Young. Try and diverse that up and normalize seeing non-anglicized names. And also just the idea that Asians, are not really allowed to be themselves. They have to leave their heritage at the door, including their name.
Mhm.
So try and pronounce names. That's something that is in your power. You seriously could try that. I have a whole presentation about how to do that. And in the links for your show notes, Andre, I have a page about all sorts of different podcasts and articles of how important the name is. That's something where you could respect somebody. It doesn't cost any money to do. And in the event and hospitality industry, I'm always looking at the speaker lineups for the conventions. It's like white faces, white faces, white faces, black, white faces, white faces, black. And then,
Mhm.
but, and so I make them aware, so I understand that diversity, equity, inclusion is really important from your values listed here. And I see that zero out of
Mhm.
73 are of Asian American descent. Right. And so trying to make this
Yeah.
aware. And so you too could also do this and then refer, hey, I know a couple of speakers. Same with leadership. So there's all these things that we could do and personally add to your feeds, add to your LinkedIn, your
Mhm.
Instagram, YouTube, add the news like Next Shark, ASM News, BBC, NBC America, and add Asian and Pacific Islander influencers. I have a feed too. Add color to your feed so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. And maybe
Mhm.
maybe you're a guitar player. Okay, we'll add a guitar player who's Pacific Islander.
Mhm.
Like on what's that show, the singing one, America's Got Talent or
America's Got
something?
Talent. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was I think this one, I'm not up on my reality TV, but there was a young Samoan, um, yeah, I think he's Samoan. No, he's a Tongan. He's a Tongan from Hawaii who was priced out of Hawaii. He's 18 years old, just lost his father. And then he moved to Seattle because he could afford it here. And he was just on there. And I'm sure there's probably some stories about him. So it's like, you don't have to be very academic, add pop culture. So there's a lot of ways that you can educate yourself, but also by doing that, you can help in your organization to make these small changes to make it a little bit more welcoming. Because for your company, If you want to recruit this fastest growing population, let's say if you are in America, then you might want to pay attention to Asian Americans. So, you know.
Yeah. No, that's, all that we've discussed today has been very powerful. It's been much of it has been a learning experience, and much of it has been like, yeah, we need to act on this, right? And I'm one of those who do need to do that. And one of the things that I like to say is, we need to talk about inclusion, real inclusion. And that's just not a certain set of cultures. It's a wide range of cultures, because this is what the global majority comprises of. It's not just Black, Indigenous, South Asian, but there's also South Asian and East Asian people and Pacific Islanders, right? So that's the most important part here. And I'm grateful to have met you, got to know you, see you on social media, and your powerful messages in Asian inclusion. So I really thank you for that, Jolene. So as we close, just tell us where the audience can find you on the social media.
Well, I'm a very lucky Asian who, if you put my name in, you'll find me. So when I'm on these different panels or I'm listening, let's say, and there's all these Asian names, it's like there are about 10,000 John Chens and Susie Wongs. And so Jolene Jang, Jolene like the song, Dolly Parton song, and Jang, just like it's spelled. It is not Korean. So Jolene Jang on all my socials and YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I've got loads of resources in 30-second bites and 2-hour bites. And lots of training to be had. So please take action. We can do this, please. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you, Jolene. This was a great conversation. I really, really appreciate it, and our audience will definitely enjoy it. So thanks again, and until next time, for another episode, watch for another episode of Global Conversations.